time to talk about another day of racing out at Saratoga. Let's discuss Saturday, August the 10th, and the late pick 5. We encourage all of you to head to the Daily Racing Form Saratoga handicapping store anytime you're playing the races at Saratoga, because they have past performances every day, DRF picks, clocker reports every racing day, and then on the weekends, on Saturdays, they have betting strategies, and those have been very good. A couple of the weekends. We're at the point of the season where we've hit a little bit of a rainy stretch. Barry last weekend was not great. The Barry I introduced, my good friend Barry Spears, the sniper, who's always here with me. But this week, they have already had a little bit of rain. It looks like the rain is turning towards Saturday and Sunday. There's a big storm like up the East Coast and throughout a lot of the U.S. right now. Colonial was dealing with a lot of rain. I know they've changed some of their racing around and they've moved some of their big races from Saturday to Sunday. I think they canceled some of their early week cards and moved them around too. So lots of wet weather, lots of rain, but fingers crossed because it looks like it's turning, Barry, and especially because you are making an appearance up at Saratoga this weekend on Friday.
Yeah, it got me out of Florida for a couple of days. So I'm headed up there on Friday,
You go from one
and
storm to the next storm.
right,
Yeah.
this Debbie storm won't get away from me. It's trailing me everywhere I go, but should be a good time. I think the weather's going to cooperate. You might get a, a, a turf race early. One of the cheaper claiming races or something off the turf early on Saturday, but it looks like it's probably going to be a good day, and Sunday looks good too. So I'm real excited to be up there.
So what they've said is the Saratoga Derby and the 4-Star Dave, those are races number 6 and 10 on Saturday. They will be carded as contingency races for Sunday. That means if rain forces those races off the turf on Saturday when they're scheduled, they'll be run as the final 2 races on Sunday's card and excluded from horizontal wagers. So it's one of these things where it is a bummer for some of the bettors because this happened last week where they actually removed races completely from the card. And when that happens, it's not like, oh, well, we're not going to run race 8. Now we move race 9 up. You can't do that because the races have already been placed in order and due to multiple race wagers and everything. So that's where the bettors kind of get impacted because you can't play multis. But if you're just looking at it from the opposite, they're just trying not to waste some of these really good turf stakes races because if you run them off the turf on the dirt, you can't run them again the next week.
Right. It's kind of a catch-22,
It is.
because of the length of the meet. It's so short. It's hard to make up this kind of action, and people want to run, and they want to run on the grass, where the race is intended to be run.
Especially if you've already postponed a race a week.
Right.
Right? Because a lot of
tough.
these are in a meet, they're on quick turnarounds. You run one race and then you run like the same division 4 weeks later, or 5 weeks at the most. So you can't run races right on top of each other either if they're in similar divisions. So you really get forced a little bit when you have to run some of these races. So it is a bummer because nobody likes to see what happened on Saturday last weekend when you can't play any pick 5s. Right, throughout the card because there's multiple races just missing from the card, and then there's big gaps in the way. Nobody wants to do that. It's just a tough situation when the weather comes in. They're going to make the best of it. They'll do everything they can, and we'll have our fingers crossed that we can just have the best possible racing and the driest possible racing on Saturday. Let's get into this late pick 5 sequence, Barry. Let's talk about race number 8. It's the Grade 2 Saratoga Special. So the 5 races that we're going to talk about, we've got 4 stakes races, 3 of them graded stakes races. So a strong sequence. And to start, we have 2-year-olds in a stakes race here. So from a discussion standpoint, the number 5 Touchy was favored in his debut. You and I talked about this race in the Tremont on June 6th when they were running at Saratoga. The blinkers will come off for him. He showed good speed in his debut. He earned a nice speed figure in finishing second, but he was pretty green late in that race. He showed his good speed as you would expect from a Wesley Ward runner, but he was kind of zigging and zagging, and he moved from the outside, kind of moved all the way to the inside. Let's start with him from a talking standpoint. What are we going to do with this Ward runner?
Yeah, it's hard. He's a hard read because you don't know whether he just got tired from running so fast early or he really isn't meant to run too much farther than than five and
Yeah.
a half furlongs.
Yep.
Um, I tend to think the latter. I think he was just all out. He's very, very fast, but not for very far. I think he may run into those same sort of challenges, especially going 6.5.
And I think what with the way the race shapes up, right, with other speed in here, if he were to catch some random field where there's not a lot of speed, maybe he can get that kind of a trip, right, where he's able to slow things down. But if he's pressed, they're
Which he
just
will be.
right?
He
Who
will be.
because how the 2 showcases will be forward, the 3 Global Legend will be forward, First Resort was forward, ASIC
Outside horse,
was
yeah.
forward, Noble Force was forward, and the 9 was really fast. Keep it easy. So when you've got 5 or 6 horses like that, and a lot of them early on, for me, it's not always this way because every race you have to look at differently. But I actually, a lot of times in these younger races, will upgrade the horses who showed me they can close.
Yes, absolutely, and that's where I'm standing in this race as well. I think the 2 showcase really doesn't want the front, and Irad does a really good job of getting horses in position without being on the lead.
Yep.
And he'll have to do that here, especially from the inside. The good thing is for him, the horse inside of him is very, very slow out of the gate,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think that horse is going to be around. Um, and it kind of leaves the rail open, which has been very, very good this meet so far.
Especially
The
recently, as we
inside has
talked
been very, very good.
on Wednesday, we're talking, and it's been good lately. Very good.
Right, and the drying out tracks, basically after it's rained and drying out, it seems like the inside has been the better part, and I think that works to showcase his advantage. Another horse who I'm going to throw down field with and give a shot is number 8, Good Directions at 15-1
Absolutely
morning
agree.
line. Just for those reasons, with horses this young, you definitely want to see something that they're good at, something they can do consistently. And this horse seems to be a consistent closer from the same out, almost kind of like Studley Do Right, the horse in the same division that beat Touchy first time out.
Who's a nice
Um,
horse. Yeah.
yeah, he's a nice horse
He
and
was
he's
second
getting
in the
setups,
Sanford. Yep.
getting
And
setups. And this is a good race for this horse to get a good setup. And I think he has a pretty good chance here.
what's nice, his race too on June the 22nd. So he breaks his maiden at Presque Isle, and then they go over to Ellis Park and they face a tougher group. And he just stumbled badly right at the start, and it just took him a little while to get back into a nice stride. He was last early. He moved into 6th out of 7. He was about 4 lengths off. He kept to the outside. He was really moving up, but he was just no match because the winner was a lone speed winner that day. So he didn't get the race shape at all that he could get in here. And he's one of just a few that are proven passing horses. I completely agree with using Good Directions. One that I wanted to mention, who, just like what you were saying with Showcase, I think the same thing for First Resort. Like, I think he can sit fine. The way that this race ended up for him, it was on a muddy sealed track. He had a fast start, and then he was inside of like 4 other horses who were all going. And so I think they just put the pedal to the metal to just push through that spot. He looked to me, once he kind of got through, I like the way he relaxed. Like, he wasn't just running off like a really fast runoff type horse. It looked like, okay, once he got through that spot, they relaxed a little bit, and he was pretty strong late. So I like him a little bit. His dam was a grade 1 winning sprinter, also Fair Maiden. She was not that long ago, just a few years ago. She won the La Brea. So she was good in spots just like this. And so I think she's like, I much prefer her, I think, to Touchy. I'm with you. Like, I'm especially the way the sequence shapes up, Barry. There are a couple really strong favorites coming up. Whether or not you're going to try to beat them, I just think they're way more formidable than Touchy.
Yeah,
The 2 that
absolutely. Yeah,
in
they're
the
stronger,
turf
stronger
sprints.
faves.
So
More
if you're
likely to win.
trying in any race to look for a little bit more value, I think this is definitely one of them where I'm fine chucking out the chalk.
Yeah, yeah, I'm total agreement with that. I mean, I like to chuck the chalk probably more than I should, but
Yeah.
definitely in this spot, I'm not that high on Touchy anyway.
And if I'm doing that, I'm probably throwing in the one. I'm throwing in the one Smoking Wicked because, like we said, his race last time out, he was 3 deep on the outside. He's about 4 length off, and he just didn't get into his best stride late. But I like the fact that he showed us he can pass horses after sitting just really close in the career debut. So in this spot, if they just take him back, let some of those speed horses go, you have to have a decision. You have to kind of have a plan, make sure you're going to take him back and then make that one late run. I think he's one that would pick up pieces. And then you run out the 9. He's probably the speed of the speed from the outside. Keep it
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think those two, the 5 touchy and the 9 keep it easy, kind of go head and head. I'd love to
Yeah,
see that.
me
And
too.
even better if First Resort gets in the mix, or even the 7 Noble Force,
Who's,
and
very quick also.
and kind of have them go at it up front and set it up for our guy Good Directions.
Yep. Noble Force had a fast start, and he just pushed through from the inside also. So they could be flying early on. It would set up nicely for some horses who can sit off the pace, maybe like Good Directions. Barry also mentions Showcase as a possibility. Smoking Wicked could definitely come closing. And then which one or a couple of these speed horses do they maybe take back a little bit? Is that something that Irad does here, or maybe Pratt can kind of sense that and do it with First Resort? There's a look at the Grade 2 Saratoga Special. Race number 8 on Saturday kicks off the late pick 5 sequence. Let's move to the 9th race, the Grade 2 Troy. This one was scheduled for last weekend. It's redrawn, but there's only one change as far as the horse in here. The number 3, Step Forward, is now entered. The one last week was Mischief Magic, who's not in this race. That's the only difference as far as this field is concerned. So
Had to go home. He had to go home.
Yep. Yeah. we too much time over here. So Cogburn is the one you got to start with from a talking standpoint, because he's just been awesome. His 6 races on the turf, he's won 5 of them. The only one he didn't win was going 6 furlongs at Kentucky, when he was beaten 3/4 of a length. And that's a really weird turf course. Some don't like it. He still ran a 96 buyer that day when he lost. So it wasn't like he ran a poor race. And he won the Troy last year. And he's gotten even a little faster this year than he was last year, where he wanted to sit off the pace a bit more. Now he was right on the lead at the Churchill Downs Turf Sprint. He broke on top and then just sat off to the outside. So super quick. What's interesting, and I was talking about this race with David Aragona, and just the difference between the 2 weeks. Like last week, David picked him on top. This week, he picked a different horse on top, and he put him second. And he was just kind of pointing out that if it is wet and they do run on the grass, that is where you may not be able to see a horse like this show their normal speed or show their normal brilliance on a different style turf course. I think that's something that's very much worth mentioning when you start with Cogburn.
Yeah, obviously the horses just run differently on the surface. It's just a different surface. But I'm with David on this one. I'm not so enthusiastic about Cogburn this time. There's a lot of factors that go into that. Mainly, I think he may have run too fast. I mean, you don't really hear me say that often, but
More of how is he going to run a 115 buyer?
Right. I
Gonna...
don't see him. I can't see him, running faster than he did on June 8th. And I know people will say, oh, well, he's had time to recover, so on and so forth. I still think that effort could have taken a lot out of him. It looked easy, but the horse was still running fast. And, he on paper, he looks excellent. Like you would want a horse that's a 1 to 2 on the morning line would look. But I don't know. I mean, I'm really skeptical, and there's some really, really, really nice horses in this race besides Cogburn, and he's not unbeatable. I mean, he's definitely, his last few have been really, really good. He's 6 out of 7 or 5 out of 6. But he's not, I don't know. I can't really explain it, but he just
I
doesn't
absolutely
seem
get where you're
like
going
overpowering of this particular field.
Is he not stepping forward, and is he going to regress? How far does he regress? And when he regresses, can the others come up and meet him? My, I guess, somewhat hesitation, because I'm not like I respect the heck out of him. And I think like in
You
this
have to.
particular
I
and
mean,
in
you
this
have no
particular race
choice.
too, like
Yeah.
he was so fast last time. He's good at Saratoga. He can kind of work out his own trip. My only concern is there enough speed in here to make it a little bit hard on him? If I'm I'm not positive. Step Forward is quick and that will maybe help. And then there's Dancing Buck. But I don't know if other
I
than
don't want
that,
Denzi Buck would really get an ideal trip trying to press a horse like Cogburn and still
yeah.
win.
Um,
They need somebody else to kind of do the dirty work, you know.
and that's what I'm
So
I'm wondering, is that horse in here?
um yeah, I
Because
mean, there's some people that may want to have to force their hand like Witty. Like I don't think they would want to drop all the way back and then try to swoop this field, especially with a potential horse that could be kind of cruising out there by himself. Same thing with XY Speed. I don't think that they will sit.
and he's probably just coming out of those 5 furlong races at Gulfstream, which play quicker early. Like by default, I think he'll be pretty close. The thing about him, like if this same race was run at Gulfstream Park, I would use him in exotics. If this was a 5 furlong at Gulfstream, I'm a little worried about the difference between the 5 furlong turf that he's running on at Gulfstream and what the 5.5 furlong turf that with maybe soft and wet could be like at Saratoga. That could be totally different. So his speed figures and stuff recently are not far off what
No,
it would
I
be to
mean,
compete with this group, you know?
honestly, any of them on their best day could rival what Cogburn
If
does.
as long as he's just not running his A game, right? Is
Right.
he's just stepping back a little bit to where he was more mortal last year in those races, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, he could certainly reverse that form. It's not a foregone conclusion that this horse is just going to, whoop this field. I know he did the last time in the Jaipur, but this is a totally different race. This is weeks later. Who knows how much, starch could have came out of him in an effort like that. Usually you don't see horses recover and run similar 111 buyers. I mean, you might not even get over 100 in this race.
So
But
let's
he
talk
may
about
be
some of the
faster than everybody else on this given day, easily. But I'm usually willing to take a shot against that.
okay, give me I had 3 horses other than Cogburn that I
Me too.
thought I kind of like and I think will run well. Is it going to be good enough to win? But there were 3 that I think I could see jumping up and maybe being good enough to compete. So go ahead, lead the way. Give us the couple that you like.
I'm sure everybody out there, if they listen to this show often, they would know it would be Big Invasion, the 6, Dancing Buck, the 7, and XY Speed, the 8. Those
Nice.
are the ones. And if you really want to go, if I wanted to go deeper, I would include the 9, Grooms All Business, who projects to get a pretty good trip here too.
And you know what? Horses like this are cool because you look at his form, he's a horse they've just always he started and faced a little bit lesser company throughout. So he's just continued to step up. And now his last 5 races that have been turf sprints, he's won 4 of them. And the one that he didn't win, he was trapped behind horses and had legitimate trouble last year on August the 13th at Monmouth.
Oh
And
yeah,
other than that, he's been in turf stakes races. He's beaten a horse like Witty. And so this is a really good spot for him to come and take the test right here.
he's very good. I mean,
Yeah, he's just
it's kind
honest.
of hidden. He's kind of hidden because he's been running at Monmouth an awful lot, and
Yep.
now he gets on the big stage, and I think he probably has a good chance to step up and do something nice here.
Third start of his form cycle. Dylan Davis has been having a very nice meeting, winning with a lot of horses right in this range, right in this 6 to 10 ish to 1 range. So he fits. We talked about XY Speed. Anything else you want to mention about this one?
No, it's an interesting race. It's definitely it could get boring if Cogburn just runs them off their feet, but I don't know.
So with Dancing Buck, and I think we may have, if we talked about this race or if we showed the same thing last time out, the Jaipur has come back live. There's been 3 next out winners so far to that race, 2 next out graded stakes winners. One of them, Star of Mystery, is going to be running in the last race, is going to be favored. And then We'll also see, we saw Filio di Ariana go and win a graded stakes race with a huge buyer speed figure. And then we saw the Coppola drop and win a smaller turf off the turf stakes race. We're watching the number 3 on this because that's Dancing Buck. And you'll see he's fast early. He's right there with like 4 other horses that are all trying to go to the lead, but they have to make a decision right here because he's inside and they have to kind of back off on him and not push. And then he's trying to sit right behind them right there. But watch what happens. The wall just comes over on him, and he ends up having to take up there. And instead of being either right on the lead or just behind the leaders, he ends up like 8th in this spot, like 4 lengths off.
Yeah, he probably wanted to be where Coppola is in this race.
Exactly. That's what he was hoping for. And I don't think he's as fast. Like if Cogburn wants to go, I don't think he's as fast as what Cogburn's shown. But if it's just Cogburn and him and like 1 or 2 others towards the front, he just won't be having as tough of a trip. He'll be able to secure much better positioning. And so that I don't know if he's going to win this race, but I'm always confident as a gambler that usually after a trip like that, they're going to, at the very least, make sure he's forwardly placed in here.
Right. He's clear and gets
not in any trouble, either on the lead or sitting second or sitting close. Like he's not losing this race because he was 3 or 4 lengths out of it early. If anything, it will be the opposite. They went too fast early, just making sure he was close up because that's where he does his best running.
Yeah, I think they have bigger designs for this horse later in the year, like Breeders' Cup types implications or ambitions, because they kind of started on this horse later.
Sure.
And I think that, you know, the idea is to get to the Breeders' Cup with this horse, and I think this horse has the chops if, you know, if he can prove that he can finish these kind of races off. This is a tough task to go up against Cogburn here, but I think this horse can do it. I like Dancing Buck quite a bit in this spot, but we'll see.
So if you are looking for prices, if you're trying to beat Cogburn, maybe you're playing Cogburn on top of some other prices. One horse who I do think is at least a bottom of exotics horse and maybe more is Outlaw Kid. So what I like about him, we've seen a very high ceiling from him. So we know on his best effort, he's capable of throwing up 100 buyer speed figure, a really strong performance. Mm-hmm. And if you're looking at his recent form, he might be rounding back into that big performance right here because he's going to go 3rd start off the bench. He could just save some ground down on the inside. He has a little versatility to him. He came from farther back last time out, but he doesn't have to be that far back. He can sit much closer. And so I think if he can take one more step forward off that 95 and you can just project it back up closer to where his top, you know, level is, what close to that 100, I think he can be in the mix too at a fair price. So he would be one that I would throw in at least underneath if you're looking for some prices in here, because I think there's another step forward maybe with him.
Yeah, I mean, I know he's won twice at the distance, but I don't really think 5.5 will suit
more
him
of a
great.
sixer.
But I think him getting in the picture is a good possibility in this race.
He should be fitter than some of these horses, especially if it's like a turf course that's tough. I wouldn't be shocked to see him just have a little more fitness late there. To look at the Troy, however you're approaching this one with Cogburn, we wish you the best of luck, and maybe we were able to lead you to a few horses that can make life difficult for him. Let's get to the 4-star Dave. So what we know from this race is that Master of the Seas, the 2 is out. And this is a grade 1 race, but what's interesting, you have some really nice horses in here, super solid horses, but they're not grade 1 horses. Nobody in here is yet. They've been in some, but this is a real shot for somebody to stamp themselves a grade 1 winner here. Strong Quality is speedy. He's going to go. He's one-dimensional. He doesn't want to sit off the pace. He doesn't want to go that far. So like a mile is good for him. This is probably a little bit tougher than where he's at his best. Like we've seen him place in the fairgrounds there against grade 3 company. probably a little bit better overall. But as I'm mentioning, this isn't 5 or 6 other grade one winners that he's facing. So while this is a grade one in name, it's not a grade one deep with proven grade one winners. They're solid horses that are probably all still a little better than him. Carl Spackler and Ottoman Fleet are the two that will likely take the most money. Carl just likes to win races right now. He's been in excellent form. He's won 4 of his last 5. And the one race, he just was a little bit flat and had kind of a wideish trip in the poker. Other than that, he always fires. Ottoman Fleet has been very sharp for Appleby, and he steps up in here after back-to-back wins, and he rarely shows up with a poor performance. So those are the two that will take a ton of money in here. But even a horse to the outside, More Than Looks, this is a really nice horse. He just hasn't run since November of last year, and he was
launches from way out of it.
no early speed, and he was entered last week in the Lure, which is an ungraded stakes on the turf. So this is a much tougher spot. He was actually favored in that race that he was entered in. This race is like your third, maybe will be your third or fourth choice, depending on where the money goes here. So a tougher spot for him. I thought this was a really interesting race because we know we're familiar with a lot of these horses. We've played them and seen them a lot of different times, and someone will kind of step up and get a really big win in here.
Yeah, I like these kind of races because these horses kind of beat up on each other a little bit.
Yep.
And this is a real competitive field, despite Master C's getting out of the race. I have a theory here. Now, stay with me. I think Strong Quality is going to have a great, fantastic trip because I think he's just quicker naturally. And Ottoman Fleet, who basically would be the other horse that could show speed here. Yeah, and I don't think they really want it.
Well, and he's not. The thing about him too, this is the first time he's ever running a mile. Everything in his entire career has been longer
or shorter. He did the 7.5 at Gulfstream, but
yeah,
like, I don't know what to make of that. But
everything has been. He debuted at 1 3/8 miles. So
and he's been facing tougher company as a whole. You got Beatbox in there. I'm Very Busy in there. Set Piece, Up to the Mark. So he hasn't been, dealing with slouches. Not that any of these others have, but I think the fact that he can get to the lead quicker than anybody else in this race gives him a distinct advantage. And
in a small enough field like this,
right? And that was the other thing I was going to say is the field being smaller helps him out quite a bit.
I think everyone will be kind of content with their positioning.
Yeah.
Like if you look at what the pace projector might have, I think that most toward the horses will probably be like, yeah, I'm cool with that spot. And that's how I'm playing the race too. I think the one in pick 4s and pick 5s, especially the way the sequence is where it could be a little bit chalky, he's a real kind of must use in this race to me. Like you were pointing out, just because there are versions of this race where he's much faster. Like I don't think Ottoman Fleet is even really fast. I think he just sort of was put on the front end because he was coming off of a couple of troubled trips, and and he was kind of behind horses, and he just wanted to go, and they went with him. And he was those last 2 races. There are probably 4 or 5 horses in this race that Ottoman Fleet is facing that are better than any of the horses he faced in that last race.
Oh, absolutely.
With Chasing the Crowd and Strong Tide, Chasing the Crown and Irish Aces. So
that was the kind of the thing in that last race is why Strong Quality. I mean, the last race against Ottoman Fleet is why he didn't go to the lead, or Strong Tide in that race. Why he didn't go to the lead, because it would have changed that whole race.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, Ottoman Fleet got a gift in that regard and wound up being on the lead. I don't think that this is going to happen that way. I'm pretty sure that Strong Quality is intent on getting the lead and to control this pace and seeing how far you can go with moderate kind of fractions. The only other horse that kind of piqued my interest was the 5 Money Supply. this horse's first time on the grass last time was a pretty good effort against some decent horses. I think deserves a shot in here, given the pace scenario. And I think this horse is probably a better closer than what the morning line is giving him credit for. And knocking heads with all those tough dirt horses, I think will give this horse a little bit of a class edge coming into this. Um, it's a really interesting race to see exactly how it's going to be run. It's projecting to be sort of a rider's race to see what Pratt is really going to do on Autumn and Fleet.
That'll be the
And
key
then,
for a lot of the race. I think then the dominoes can kind of fall, right? Like
right.
where he places himself. Um, because of the way that we're projecting this, I actually like Major Dude a little bit in this race. Like what time form US was showing, because I just think last year it seemed like he hit his ceiling in the middle of the year and
Hmm.
then he was just flat. Like I'm fine looking at his final couple races of last year and just eliminating them
Tossing them out.
pretty
Yeah.
much after the Penn Mile and just saying like, you know what, he just was over the top a little bit. He just maybe there was something wrong because he's come back this year and he just misses running down Big Everest, who's a speed horse. So if he gets loose on the lead, he's tough. And I just wanted to show the last part of this race because I could see him getting almost an identical trip in this race that he did in his last race. And that in a small field like that, like this, it could be really key. So he's the 2 that we're watching. So fine start from the inside, and he's able to just sort of sit and secure the ground like right behind. And so he's sitting just kind of tucked in behind the leaders through a lot of this race. And then top of the lane, he's waiting, and he's able to get a nice run through on the inside. He's kind of just trying to pick a spot. Is he going to go outside? They go a little bit out, and then he's able to shoot down to the inside right here. I could actually see him getting the same exact trip in this race with strong quality on the lead, him sitting behind. And if maybe, Ottoman Fleet or a horse like Carl Spackler, if they try to make an early move and get aggressive, this horse is sitting just right behind him, and he could get a very nice trip. I like the fact that he's been good. His best 2 races have come so far in his 4-year-old season. He doesn't, can he step forward slightly or just kind of run that same race he's been running? And he may get a great trip, 3rd start of the form cycle. So I'm going to throw him in the mix too. And I'm definitely throwing in the 1, who you pointed out, just could be cruising it.
Yeah, I mean, my only issue with Major Dude is I'm not really sure he's at this level. I mean, this is certainly a class test, and if you're gonna bet him, you definitely want to get your price in this race.
Yeah. And I
Because if
think
he gets bet down too much, under, I'd say probably under 6 or 5 to 1, you
that's
have to
about what
really
I'd want.
really evaluate yourself and what you're doing. you know, I mean, he has every right to win, of course. I mean, I don't really think there's anybody in this race that couldn't win.
Yeah, that's what makes
It's
it tough because, like you said, the
Yeah,
5 only has the 1 turf race. Why can't he step forward? Ottoman Fleet's obviously good enough. More than looks, he's making his first start as a 4-year-old. This barn has been awesome off of long layoffs, but it's the long layoff plus the class plus his running style. That's
tough.
what kind of makes it hard in a small field. Like he could be way behind the rest of this field early because they're all a little more tactical than him. Like
Yeah,
I guess Money Supply doesn't have that much early speed, but he's actually shown the ability to even be more tactical than More Than Looks. So, Carl, just sharp, like able to adapt to different races. This is a good spot for a lot of these horses to try to get their grade 1. Like it's a good spot where you're not having to face a bunch of other super proven
right.
horses.
Or
Master
or
of the Seas got
monsters.
scratched, right? You like a horse like Master of the Seas is out of this race. So
That made all the difference in this race. This
for
became a better race with that horse out of it.
much more interesting from a betting standpoint, much more
Mm.
competitive overall. Let's get to the final 2 races on the Saturday card. Race number 11. It's a 16 starter allowance. Going 6 furlongs on the dirt in here. Poppy's Pride from the inside, pretty quick. And when you go through a lot of the field, you see they're quick. Downtown Charlie Brown has speed, sit off a little bit. You see
Pin
horses
track.
like Pin Track really, really quick. They want to go to the outside of that one. Banyan Breeze will be kind of pressing and sitting to the outs, sitting off. So I'm looking for a couple that I think have some versatility, Barry. A couple that kind of jumped out to me were
I think we might
horses.
have landed on the same horses here.
Yeah, like I like the 3 a little bit, Got Thunder,
Yes,
right?
yes.
He'll come into this, he'll make his 3rd start of the form cycle. He just feels like he's going to get a really nice trip in here, sitting, behind all that speed early on. And then right next door, Dots Dollar was another who I'm okay with excluding that last race, and I'm just looking 2 starts back. And if he's able to show up with something like that, he had a good race last year at Aqueduct when he sat off the pace. He's another one who could get a nice trip and really fall into it. Those 2 were on my radar to start. Mention anything else you want about Got Thunder or any others in here?
Yeah, I like Got Thunder. I think this horse is coming into this race in real good form and sneaky class, because those races, those allowance races at Aqueduct were pretty good, that this horse had, and kind of seems to be rounding in that kind of form. And this race kind of sets up for him to do that. There's quite a bit of speed in here, and the pace should be honest. The other one that I gave a second look to was the 5 MB's Munning. Almost for the same reasons. I think this horse has been knocking heads with some really good company, like on the low, as they say.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
The first, like this horse is dropping out of legitimate allowance races. Even the Finger Lakes race was like
it's a
solid
tough
company.
race. I mean, Ship
Yeah.
Chase, was on the Derby Trail for a while.
Dock Advantage is a sharp
And
horse
has
too.
been kind of, yeah. So and didn't disgrace himself out there. So I am pretty sure this one's probably coming into this race the right way. Chris Engelhart does some good work with these kind of types, especially at Saratoga, kind of swooping in and having a shot in a race that the public may not think so.
Yeah, most of his recent races are just against a lot tougher spots than this. So he's a real fun horse to throw into some of your exotics. Yeah, I think we hit, because I'm fine. Again, if you're looking at this sequence, like Print Track can absolutely win this race, but I'm okay taking a shot against him in here with other speed, because you have to kind of pick and choose some of your spots. And this might be one of the shorter prices that I think is a little more vulnerable with some of the other pace in here. He's the one they'll all have to beat, probably the one they'll all have to catch, but looks like a couple others that are pretty dead set on the front end as well. So race number 11 leads us into the 12th and final. We actually have another stakes race to close things out. This one is the Galway. It's a 5 furlong turf sprint for 3-year-old fillies. And the morning line favorite in here, Star of Mystery, she actually is a 3-year-old filly who has faced older boys in 4 of her last 6 starts. She's faced the boys in her last 6. She beat the boys on July 14th in a grade 3. And I actually bet Mansa Musa that day, the horse who was second. He got the exact trip I was hoping for. He got the jump on this horse. He took like a 2-length lead on this one at the top of the lane. Everything was perfect, and she just ran him right down. She's faced nice horses, but she's another one, Barry, that in sort of like the same sense as Cogburn, like, does she have another step forward here, right? Is she going to maybe regress a little bit in this race? And if so, does that make her more competitive? And does that, bring horses like Pipsy? I even think the 8 Carry You, who was in that same race with Pipsy, kind of interesting. Let's start with Star of Mystery, who's your 2 to 5 morning line favorite here. So a couple heavy favorites in this late pick 5 sequence.
Yeah, this is wild. This is tough to get around the favorite here, Star of Mystery. I mean, everything points to this horse getting the optimal trip in a race where there's speed. I think the first 3 horses, first 4
That's the
inside
problem.
horses, the
It's gonna
1,
set up.
2, 3, and 4 are just gonna go nuts up
If
front.
so, if the one, I think the one's probably hoping this race comes off the turf, like
Yes.
just being in here for that sense. So I think if this race stays on the grass, I wouldn't be shocked if the one scratches. But the 2 is going to go. The 4, Ever So Sweet, very fast, going to go. The 6, El Terreno, really quick. the 7, Baraje, very quick.
I mean,
And I wouldn't
yeah,
be shocked if from the outside they had to try to get this horse involved more early because he's outside. She's to the outside and she's not been quite as good in her last couple. Maybe they can kind of wake her up by showing some more speed. She wasn't too far out of it early on last year in fast races. I'm just expecting it to set up well for this filly who's been facing tougher boys and beating a tougher boys in some of those races.
yeah, absolutely. Even the last one. I mean, she held her own against Cogburn the day he ran a hole in the wind, and then comes back and wins big against the boys in the quick call. Um, but I would personally, it's tough to get around Star of Mystery. I would, maybe include Kairu.
That's who I like. Yeah.
He seems like the second best closer here.
Yep. Because
And
she ran that race with Pipsy. Pipsy had the very obvious missed the break at the beginning, but Kairu did not have a great start. And then Kairu ran into some traffic, all while Pipsy was able to get that clear run on the outside. And then Kairu came back and ran really well again and lost to a horse named Twirling Queen. Twirling Queen is in really sharp form right now. She's won 4 in a row. Sprinting, just a really nice horse at the moment. So, in the race we did this preview for drf.com. I did it with David Aragona as well, and I couldn't get around Star of Mystery.
it's hard.
Try
It's hard.
because you know me, like I don't like putting the favorite up on top. I just hate doing that. But I went 5-8 here. With those, I put the 5 on top of the 8. Carry you. And then the 2 others that I went underneath with. I think the 4 is going to run better than she did last time out. She had a slowish start, like right after the start, she stumbled a bit, and it wasn't that bad of a stumble. I just was expecting more from her in that race. Like, I think she's a little better than that effort. So while I'm not sure if she can win because of the other speed in here, I'm going to use her in tries and stuff, and I wouldn't be shocked to see her be one of the better speeds in this race. And then you got Pipsy, who's got some versatility. Because in her first couple starts before coming to the U.S., Pipsy was actually showing speed in Ireland. And then on May the 12th, she missed the break, and she came from way out of it. Then they went long, and they put her on the front end, and she just didn't want to go long. So now they cut her back to a turf sprint. But when you have a horse that looks like they can get the trip, they're coming out of better, tougher races. She's going to make her 3rd start of the form cycle. She's a strong connections play with Pratt and Appleby. She's tough to knock in this spot. She really is. Star of Mystery, 2-5 on the morning line. But hopefully we were able to lead you to a few winners on the Saturday card at Saratoga. So Barry, my man, you are heading up Friday, so you won't be at the track on Friday. You'll likely be out at Saratoga on Saturday and Sunday, correct?
Absolutely.
So anyone that's in the area, make sure you touch base with Barry, head on out there, buy him a drink, please. Buy him a shot, and make sure you say hello, take a picture, post that on social media. You're going to get to connect with Matt this weekend, I think, for the first time,
yes,
right?
indeed. Yeah.
Very
First
cool.
time seeing him in person.
Very cool. So anything else you want to mention? You're also going to get a chance to visit Chuck, right?
Yep, absolutely. Definitely. That's first on my list. Hang out with Chuck and see how he's doing, make sure he's got everything he needs. But yeah, it should be a nice weekend.
Barry, buddy, thank you so much. We were able to record a little early this week because we want to give you the opportunity to get traveled on out to Saratoga. Best of luck to Barry Spears. Best of luck to all of you. Make sure to head to shop.drf.com and visit that Saratoga handicapping store all throughout the meet. Good luck. Soothing sounds of Joey Cleveland takes us out.